Welcome back. My name is Matt Reiners, and I'm the VP of Key Accounts of Uniguest, a company committed to developing engagement technologies to help communities connect and improve the quality of life for older adults. Today, I'm joined by my friend with the coolest glasses, I must say, Heather Freemont, the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Maplewood Senior Living and Inspire Senior Living. Heather has been in the industry for almost 30 years and has been an executive director, a director of marketing and sales, director of community relations, regional director of ops, vice president of sales and marketing, and now the SVP of sales and marketing. Thanks for joining me today, Heather.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Great to see you as always. Thanks for that great intro. I think you gave away my age already, so you can easily add that up. But no, all joking aside, um, definitely excited to be here and can't wait to talk about some of the accomplishments that our team has had here over the last year.
Yeah. Well, I think I need to let everybody know you started working as an ED when you were one, so you're about 31 now.
Yeah, right.
So I
Yeah,
know I
yeah.
shared a
I'm
little bit about your,
21.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I know I shared a little bit about kind of the different roles, but I'm curious, can you share your background and how you got into senior living?
Oh, sure. I guess I think I'm probably one of those rare people. Once in a while, I run into them that I knew in high school that I wanted to work with seniors. I had a close relationship with my great grandmother and grandparents, and took a career class, and they talked a lot about, what are the careers of the year 2000, which at the time seemed like a long time. Um, I did some of the typical career testing, and it seemed to be right on point for my personality. And I love helping people, so no one better but to help than seniors. And so I knew, graduating from high school and going into college, that was the direction that I wanted to go in. So for me, it was kind of easy, and I was searching for colleges that had the degree that I needed to get. And so I was able to find a school that I could focus on gerontology and more of the science part of aging, as well as the business side in healthcare administration. So that's what I did from day one. And all joking aside, I was an executive director at 21 out of college. So not didn't know what I was doing, but I made an attempt at it.
I love it. I love it. And it's great you knew
Yeah.
early on and were able to go and explore that and found a program for you. Um, and I know, Heather, so your community's recently celebrated averaging 95% occupancy. So I'll give you a little round of applause here. Can you
Yeah.
describe the key factors or strategies that have contributed to your senior living communities achieving that occupancy rate well above the industry average?
Sure. Got to start by bragging on the team here. First and foremost, we have an incredibly talented team in both the sales and the marketing side. So I feel very lucky to work with very intelligent people, but also very strategic individuals that like to make things happen. Um, I think a lot of it has to do with us working together. I've also, as you mentioned before, I've had a few past positions as vice president of marketing and sales. And I've always felt that when you have those two areas under the same umbrella, you're bound to get better results. We really have a philosophy at Maplewood that our marketing team is there to serve the sales team and to help them, whatever that means, whether it's helping with the customer journey, supporting with tools or whatever. We definitely are working, towards that goal as opposed to working in silos, and just kind of making pretty brochures and things like that. So it's really focused on sales strategy. Um, I asking about, how'd we get there? I think it's having that strategic plan in place, which our team is really dedicated to each year. We spend, a week working on a strategic plan each year as a team and really looking at each community and what happens in that local market and what the competition looks like and, what has worked, what has not, and just really put in the details into our plan and every channel, every tactic that we're going to work through the year. And then of course we're constantly adjusting it based on those results. And then I'd also say it's really in the details. I think when people ask about, how did you get there? How do some of these communities have 100% occupancy? When I look at it, I really feel like it's hundreds of little details on a daily basis that the teams are focused on. There's really not one particular thing that you can point to. It's them really working towards that goal every day with everything that they do and putting focus into those details. And then, you know, the other thing I just want to mention is we work really closely with our partners. You're an example of that, Eversound, and we have a lot of amazing partners, and in different aspects, from technology partners to lead generation partners. And I definitely have the philosophy of just really leaning into your partners and seeing how you can collaborate, how you can help them grow. And our partners have certainly leaned into us and have helped us grow in any way possible, are very accommodating to our needs. And a lot of our success has been, that collaboration as well. So I think it's kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Um, and our teams make it look easier than it is sometimes. It's just there's a lot of detail that goes into it every month, and it's a continuous cycle, right? You get somewhere, but then our industry, obviously, there's occupancy for the month, there's your ins, there's your outs, and then there's where you're going to net at the end of the month. So sometimes that's the challenge, is that monthly net every month.
Yeah. No, a lot of good understanding there. And I love how you're giving your team props, right? Because they're doing day in and day out the work and really leaning into those details. And, I'll give Maplewood props. I think in terms of like embracing and understanding the impact technology can have, you guys crush that. And that's been since day one. I know you mentioned how marketing is really there to serve sales. I'm curious if there's any specific marketing initiatives or campaigns that have been particularly effective in attracting residents, and if you could share any examples of what those successful campaigns were. You don't have to give away all the secrets here, though.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's funny about secrets. Like, people will ask about sharing things, and I'm always one that will share, because I truly do think that so much of it has to do with the execution of a plan. I mean, I could hand you over our entire marketing plan, and you have to be able to execute on every single day to get those results. So, but anyways, back to campaigns. I think I would say that our most powerful tool has really been, over time, not even this year, but for the past several years, has really been harnessing the power of happy residents and families,
Mm,
through their testimonials, through their online reviews, through their comments, their feedback, really taking those things to heart, and tuning into their voice, and then asking them to share with others, through your resident referral programs and things like that. And we definitely see that when a family member says something, it holds a lot of value, for prospective families. They want to hear others' experiences. So, we really have been fortunate to get a lot of positive feedback. We continue to focus on our standards and, pushing the envelope on excellence, and then take advantage of families that are willing to offer and share, and just really utilizing their testimony, their comments, because I really don't think there's a more powerful, marketing tool than that. So, I mean, their work done is, tenfold what I can put out there with my messaging. So, I mean, that's what I would say, when I look at it.
yeah, it's the age old just kind of business strategy, right? Have happy clients, and it's going to
Yeah.
turn into more happy clients. And it's funny. I'll talk to some other senior living community providers that don't understand that at times. I mean, I think they all kind of preach it, but definitely don't put it into practice. So, kudos for you guys for actually delivering on your promises for that.
Yeah, we're trying every day,
Yeah.
I always say we're not perfect, but we are trying to work towards that. And, I think a lot of it is just listening to them when you fail, and making an effort to make it better and not do it again. Right.
Yeah. And one of the other questions I have about that, because you've got an awesome career, not all just at Maplewood, but throughout the industry. And I'm sure you've been around communities that hover around 100% occupancy. I'm sure you've seen communities that aren't around that at all. I'm just curious,
Yeah.
what are the ones that are hovering around this 100% doing differently than those that aren't?
It's funny you asked that. We were just analyzing year-end statistics, and kind of looking at our communities because we are fortunate to have some communities hovering at 100%, and we have communities that averaged over 98 to 99% occupancy all of last year, which is pretty amazing. And
Yeah.
when I look at, what are those teams doing? It goes back to their daily stuff that they do is on point. So, that's kind of been our philosophy, has really been focusing on the daily and the weekly, that equals the monthly, that equals the annual. And I think those teams they've got it down. They realize they can never stop doing those daily things that work, that outbound activity, that contact with their prospects, re-engagement, getting people in the community. You get to 100%. I think some people feel like, okay, I can kind of rest now. I'm at 100%. We know that doesn't stay, right? Um, you're going to have 4 or 5 outs next month. And so the communities that are consistently successful at that, they're never resting that way. They're keeping a constant cadence of outbound, and they're re-engaging with prospects. They're engaging with their wait list. They're bringing people into the community, and they're continuing to keep them fresh and know that, you may not want to move in right this second, or we may not have the inventory that you're looking for right this second, but we might next week. So they're keeping them in close contact, and to be successful, on a daily basis. And in many of those communities, somebody's the apartment's open one day and the next day somebody's moving in. So there's definitely a way to keep that funnel going and that momentum going in those communities.
Yeah, it's fine. It seems like to me, right? It's like those daily activities almost become habitual, and it's just like the things that they need to accomplish every single day. And like really just kind of instilling that and helping people. I mean, everyone wants to win, right? Or at least you would hope everybody wants to win. And to your earlier
Yeah.
point, the devil is in the details. So making sure that people are practicing that. Um,
Yep, for sure.
and another question I have for you, Heather, based on your experience in the industry, right? Like it's been a rapidly evolving healthcare landscape, right? I'm sure the ALs of
Right.
today were very different than the ALs of a decade ago. And I'm just kind of curious how you adapt your sales and marketing strategies to meet these changing consumer preferences, demographics, and really needs among seniors and their families.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and we just in the last couple of years, we've seen some huge transformation in marketing tools as one example. But our team definitely tries to stay modern, understand what's happening in the platform. We do a lot of reading, we do a lot of trials, we do a lot of pilots. We try to get in front of these new um, technology folks that are out there to, pick us to try something. We're willing to try anything. But I think what I'm most proud of with our team this year has been really listening and getting in front of our customers. And I'll give you an example of that. Um, our marketing team was able to speak to over 20% of our new move-ins this year. And we, as opposed to doing a written survey, we did voice to voice. We had questions that we asked all of them. And, from that, I would say I was blown away when I read the results. Um, we were able to obtain a ton of information about the buyer journey. Like we have assumptions that we think, this is what happens when somebody's looking at options. What are their other options they're looking at? Sometimes we make the assumption that it's XYZ senior living down the street, the CCRC over here, and AL next door. We were pretty surprised by what their journeys look like. We were surprised by the number of places they looked at, their knowledge that they had, things they were surprised by, how they made their decision, who influenced it, what did they use to do their research. And, we loved having those conversations with all of those folks because we really got a lot of great information. And then took that and really rolled that back into our process,
Mm,
back into our move-in process, our sales process, how we reach out, how we contact prospective families, what do we do during the move-in to make it a better journey, educational tools that we needed to provide. So, you know, I just love the information. And we did that in a couple of different ways this year with having that voice-to-voice contact and really listening to the customer. And it taught me a tremendous amount of things that I shouldn't assume a lot, right? And We definitely have already, changed process, and the teams are reacting to that, and they're moving forward in a different direction and many different things that we were doing. So, I think that's how we've been trying to stay relevant more recently. But I think we have a lot of room to grow there. I think we want to continue to do things like that so that we can listen to our customers and, change things accordingly. And as you said, senior living is changing all the time. Our customers are about to change here in the next couple years significantly, and so we really have to get our arms around what that looks like and stop just kind of moving forward every day without thinking about it.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you bring up such a good point of just like talking to your customers, right? Like I think there's so many companies that are almost afraid to do that at times because they're afraid of what they're going to hear, and will start to get defensive if it's negative, but like just
We're a little afraid too.
yeah, and it's
Yeah,
just
I mean,
like
it's a little scary to ask those questions, you
of
know?
oh, absolutely. But I think when we put ourselves in places of being vulnerable and understanding and like knowing what's going on and kind of where people's heads are at, it's only just going to allow you to get better. I mean, that from the vendor side, from the provider side, and really anything like talking to your customers. And it seems like you guys are doing a good job of that. And, it's reflective in the success you guys are finding as a team. Um, we talk about the team, right, and the details and what they do every single day. But I'm just wondering if you could share any additional insights into your team's training and development programs for your sales or marketing professionals to ensure that they're excelling and really promoting your communities.
Sure, great question, Matt. I think we definitely have worked hard to improve, training. All of our team members, when they join, we have a solid kind of onboarding training that we do that's a baseline, and it's a baseline of, who we are as a company, uh, kind of our overall culture as a sales and marketing team, which I think is important for people to understand. Because even though we might have people that have worked at 3 or 4 different providers, we find that the way we do things is very different than maybe the way they did things, and so we try to kinda start everybody with the baseline, with a written documentation, a training manual that, the same our vice president of sales goes through with them individually and make sure they can answer questions and really kind of make it relative to their market. And then I think, something that I think has helped us significantly, is we have a weekly, what we call training and topics call, for our sales, all company sales. We get on the phone every week. We started this over 3 years ago. We just started talking about how much there was a delta with people. With some people could run reports in the system, some people couldn't. How we got some of the repetitive questions about, how do I do this event? How do I push this forward? And we really looked at it and said, you can only retain so much, initially and even ongoing. How can we get in front of everyone and really move the needle here on everybody's understanding and, increase our conversion ratios, decrease our sales cycle? How can we do that? There's only so many people to go around and do training. So we started these training calls. We're like, what can an impact make, once a week for 20 to 30 minutes? And I think it's made the biggest impact. I mean, I've always been one with the saying of, how do you eat an elephant? And, this kind of proved that to us. We've seen tremendous results from it. We see a team that knows how to run reports, knows how to move the needle, knows how to get over objections. It's a weekly platform for our team to ask questions of us, to get in front of us, talk through things that might be going on in all the markets that we haven't heard. And then, there's always a topic. I think you've been on it before with us, Matt, as a guest speaker, but we bring our vendors on. We have them give an intro, to what they do to collaborate with us. And then our team can directly ask questions of them as well and have a firsthand understanding of the people that we're working with as well. And the team seems to respond positively. We've been blessed to get some well-known authors and speakers on those calls and, for some additional education for the team. And, that seems to have worked. And we've seen tremendous results over the last couple of years with that little 20 or 30-minute segment every week, has added up and made a big difference on the team. So, and then we're always available to them. We always say, look, if you need something, I'm always available to you, whether it's the weekend, the evening, you text me if you need something. Our whole team has the philosophy of, we're here to help you. And we know that we're asking a lot of you every day. You're checking your leads at 8 o'clock at night. If you need us, you call us, we're going to be there for you. So, I mean, that's just kind of our overall training and just how we help support them.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, giving those open floor conversations, right, to better understand or ask those questions, again, I think it comes down to honest conversations, right? And like really just trying to put people in opportunities to feel comfortable bringing those questions up. And, kudos for you guys for creating that culture where you are doing that. And then my final question here for you, Heather, and arguably my
Okay.
most favorite, if you were to give other senior living providers three guiding principles as we move through 2024, what would you say?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say re-examine everything. Um, I just said to my team this morning, Andy Cristono put out a great article about your website. We're committing at least 10 of the sins he has listed on there. Um, I think, again, the buyer journey continues to change. What you did with your website yesterday should be different than today. So I would look at all of your platforms, tactics, and say, what can I find that's going to tell me how this has changed and how can we improve it? Um, I think we're going to see a completely different year in the industry from a standpoint of how does it go, because the consumers are coming back to us. We're seeing huge lead increases. I'm hearing this from colleagues across the industry in different companies. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our sales team. So number two would be the details. Make sure our teams are trained, they're on point with how do we handle leads, how quickly is our speed to lead, what's our follow-up, making sure teams are thoroughly trained in order to service those leads. And if we can't service them, who else is going to service them? Do you need somebody else on the team? In the details of that. And then lastly, let's see. I would say watch out for AI because, as we all know, we're going to look back at this year and think, what just happened? But there's lots of tools. I've been privileged to be part of a group that's kind of reading together and lots of great conversations on where we're going with this. But there's so many marketing and sales tools that I encourage everybody to be looking at, sharing information. I know we're all doing it as colleagues right now, and I think it's going to make major changes to every industry, but lots of opportunity for senior living.
I,
So
I
those would
can
be my three.
Good three. And yeah, I would completely agree on the AI thing. I think a lot of people are freaked out by it, but I keep trying to tell people like it's a tool, learn to use it to your advantage or be left
Yeah.
behind. And yeah,
Yep.
there's just a lot of cool things out there. But Heather, I want to thank you so much. I also want to thank you for sending my new favorite notebook here.
Uh-huh.
We appreciate you so much, and you're definitely one of the best and brightest in this industry. And it's no surprise that Maplewood seems to be crushing it. So good job, way to go.
Yeah. Well, ditto, Matt. We love partnering with you, and you're one of those people in the industry that we've always loved, and we thank you for your support and collaboration.
If you'd like to know when we post the next episode, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're interested in how Eversound can help improve the quality of life in your community, find out more at eversoundhq.com.